Now, there was one big story in the news that caught my eye, and that, of course, relates to net neutrality. We did a lot on this topic a few months ago, right around the time the FCC was making their big decision as to whether or not to eliminate the net neutrality regulations that the prior FCC administration had put in place. And this, of course, immediately went to court, and an appeals court has now ruled on the FCC's decision. And what happened here, it's very complex, but basically both sides ended up getting something out of this decision. So the FCC is able to keep its regulation or lack thereof in place. And the opposition also has a win here because the FCC will not be able to restrict states from implementing their own net neutrality rules for their consumers. So if a state wanted to say there is net neutrality in our state and you can't do X, Y, or Z, they will be able to do that, at least under this ruling. I expect this to go another round in court because the FCC has to go back and redraft their decision. So it's likely this might end up back at an appeals court or go all the way up to the Supreme Court, which is probably likely. And all of this is happening in the vacuum of Congress not actually doing anything about it. So we'll have to see how all of this plays out. But what's interesting in reading a further story here on Axios is how different the landscape is now versus what it was when we were having this discussion before. And what the Axios article here is talking about is the fact that the big tech companies are worried about other things beyond just net neutrality at the moment. Namely, it's getting broken up by the government, actually, and antitrust investigations and all the other regulations that lawmakers are thinking about putting on these social media platforms. They're kind of distracted away from some of the other things that are going on. And I think a lot of big platforms kind of looked at the FCC's decision as an inevitable thing and started making deals to prevent it from interrupting their business practices. So, for example, last year Comcast and Netflix got together. Comcast will actually now bundle Netflix service with their other services on their Infinity X1 platform. And of course, Netflix has been paying Comcast to co-locate equipment in Comcast facilities so they can deliver video content to customers much faster than they would if they were outside of the network. And these kinds of deals were happening even before net neutrality because there are just some engineering issues related to how the internet works, and it's always better to be on the inside of the local customer's network than on the outside of it. And of course, Comcast and other internet providers, being in a very almost monopolistic position in this industry, have the ability to extract a lot of money from these companies for the rental fees and other things that go with that co-location. Another company that made a deal with Comcast right around the same time was the company in which we are appearing on right now, which is YouTube. Comcast also has YouTube on the X1 cable system, and if you are on Comcast, you've probably seen just how fast those YouTube videos spin up when you go to push the button. If you're a premium subscriber like me, it's almost instantaneous, and that's because YouTube likely also paid to co-locate facilities with Comcast to make sure that YouTube viewers on Comcast services get very quick access to the video. So a lot of the issues that I think the big tech companies were raising have probably been settled, at least in the sense that they've just paid for the access and they're ready to move on to the next big thing. But it will be interesting to see how states react to this and what they decide to do, and what the ISPs will decide to do in response to those state decisions. So we'll be talking a lot more about this as time goes on. I might try to get a few folks from Connecticut on to talk about what happens, or what will happen perhaps, in my state. I think it might be an interesting discussion just to see what these legislators are thinking about. If you think that would be interesting, let me know, and I will double my efforts to get some folks on to talk about it.
This channel is brought to you by the Lon.TV supporters, including gold-level supporters, the Four Guys with Quarters podcast, Chris Allegretta, Tom Albrecht, Mike Talbert, Brian Parker, and Kalyan Kumar. If you want to help the channel, you can by contributing as little as $1 a month. Head over to Lon.TV/support to learn more. And don't forget to subscribe. Visit Lon.TV/S.